change is caused by too much carbon, you've been fooled. We live, here we go, on a spinning planet that rotates around a much bigger sun, along with other planets and heavenly bodies rotating around the sun that all create gravitational pull on one another while our galaxy rotates and travels through the universe. Consider all that. Yes, our climate will change, and it's totally normal. There's no amount of taxes or carbon reduction that will stop or tame the weather events or climate change, because we spin. Did you know that planets spin and we actually spin around the sun? The sun doesn't spin around us. I just learned that.
As if Marjorie Taylor Greene wouldn't be the first person to try to stone someone to death for introducing a heliocentric theory.
Yes, the Marjorie Greenes throughout history have done exactly that. Just, I mean, absolutely insane. Anyway, there's a little bit more from her saying, again, should we even, okay, here we go. Oh, I think we might be out of
buy the climate hoax. It's a hoax because a lot of people make money on climate change. And people are not affecting climate change. You're gonna tell me that back in the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay and how many changes did governments make to melt the ice?
That's a beautiful way to end this hour of show. Just that display of idiocy. Marjorie Greene, again, y'all, people need to elect folks who actually
know that we're still in an ice age, maybe.
Just a GE, like, I don't even know, like a couple years community college, whatever it is, just, Anyway, that's been the show. Thank you so much, Ray. Everybody follow Rayvana on all the things. Check her out on Rebel HQ, of course. And me, Francesca Fiorentini. Check me out on the Bitchuation Room podcast. Tuesdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Up next, I think it is the Watch List. Very exciting afternoon. And my sign off is bye.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's up, Ma? Welcome to the watch list, you guys. Appreciate you being here on a big Wednesday show. Glad you guys could show up. We've got presidential candidates. We've got people jumping off of second floor stories in malls. Crazy enough, I did mention that this morning. But the thing is, the theme is we're gonna go from, of course, the hardcore stuff to a little bit chill as we go through it. But I wanna thank you guys for being here, all you punctual folks being on time with me. Since you're here, go ahead, like, subscribe, share that stream. Let folks know what we're doing here. We'll chop this up and throw it on the watch list TYT page as well. And you can check it out again because you just can't get enough. I hear you talking to me. I'm just here to listen. Someone else I want to listen to today is Sharon Reed. She joins me on the program today. She's a TYT contributing host. You know where you're going to find her? You know you'll find Sharon. You're going to find Sharon on Unbossed. You're going to find her Indisputable. You're going to find her on the main show. You're going to find her on the watch list. And TDR.
Rooting for the Trojans. It's the Trojans, right?
Yes, of course.
For this 1 hour.
Is there anyone else? How you feeling, Sharon? What's going on? She's been giving me trouble for the past 5 minutes before we jumped on.
Well, just deciding who I want in the NBA Finals. The avid fan I am. Just fell off a little bit.
I mean, we started nice and cheerful, but then you come with all this madness. Game 3 is tonight. I'm sure you'll be watching as Jimmy Buckets goes and puts on yet another show. See if they can pull this whole thing off. Maybe we'll talk about it next time for sure. Glad you're here. Glad you guys are here. Let's go ahead and jump into this first thing. We've got many people that are diving into the Republican presidential race. The thing is what kind of impacts are they trying to make? And how are they gonna pull this whole thing off? We know the two front runners and the rest are just kind of the others. Enter one, Christie.
George, I think there is only one lane to the Republican nomination for president, and Donald Trump's at the head of it, and you need to go right through him and make the case against him. And that's what I intend to do, while also making the case for leadership that doesn't turn its back on Ukraine, for leadership that says, yes, we have to be fiscally responsible again, for leadership that says we should have educational freedom, and that when you make promises as a presidential candidate, you should keep them.
Familiar face, Christie, running for president yet again. He jumped on Good Morning America to talk about his approach. It's gonna take a little bit different strategy than last time, which was to kiss Donald Trump's ass. He's now going through Donald Trump. Hey, I think that's actually a good strategy considering everyone else in the field said, no, thank you, I'm afraid of that guy. Please vote for me anyway. Well, he immediately had a chance to put that strategy to work as he had a town hall that he went and visited up in Manchester, I believe in New Hampshire. And he went after him based on a bit of substance. Surprise, surprise, here.
The reason this is gonna be different this time, sir, is because at least one of us is gonna call him on the fact that 8 years ago, he stood on the stage in New Hampshire and said he was gonna balance the budget in 4 years. And he left with the biggest deficit of any president in American history. He said he was going to eliminate the national debt in 8 years. He added $3 trillion to the national debt in 4 years.
Well, damn. He's talking about the debt deficit, the promises that Trump made based off of the money that he spends and tax cuts that he said would help regular Americans when it actually didn't. No, he didn't actually mention the tax cuts because that should come later. But the thing is there's a bit of a factual approach here with his attacks. Maddening how this works. It's weird. He even went after some of his character flaws, but not through name calling. He went after some of Donald Trump's character flaws to point out how dangerous he could be. There's warnings even. Watch more.
Beware. Beware of the leader in this country who you have handed leadership to, who has never made a mistake, who has never done anything wrong, who when something goes wrong, it's always someone else's fault, and who has never lost. I've lost. You people did that to me in 2016.
And he's funny, Sharon.
Yeah.
So here's Christie. He threw his hat in the ring and he's gone straight for Donald Trump on actually some issues that probably do make some sense to some of those voters. The one thought I did have before you give me a couple of your thoughts on these first few videos is, if he's coming for these types of things when it comes to the way Trump is fiscally irresponsible, despite all the things he was saying. He was talking about the border wall. He's saying he's gonna make Mexico pay for it. Didn't finish the damn thing, but whatever. All these things he was hitting him on. But the one part that he could maybe shoot himself in the foot with this approach is that, hey, Chris, you're a Republican. These are the policies that all you guys support.
Yeah, and hey, Chris, remember when you were buddied up to him before Jared tripped you? Okay, and you needed surgery and you had to get out of there. Okay, it was COVID and he was, hospitalized for some time. Glad he made it. Yeah. But Christie is built for this. Okay, this is his moment. He loves to, let alone punch back, he loves to punch first. He loves to retaliate too. Remember Bridgegate? I mean, this is the guy who can tick off all of the details that Donald Trump doesn't like to talk about. We're waiting on the nickname, but that's only gonna go so far when Donald gives him one, and then we'll see, But will Christie be in a debate, and who will be on the stage with him? Because I don't think it's gonna be Donald Trump. I don't think he's ever gonna get there.
Why is that? I have an idea, but I wanna go see if you can finish that thought.
I don't think he's gonna be on the debate stage because I don't know if he's gonna do well enough early on, but perhaps that's what all of this bluster is about. I don't know if he's gonna be able to raise the money. I don't know if Donald Trump's party is gonna play fair and allow him to be on that stage so long as Donald Trump has the reins. That's the only thing I can, come up with right now, but it could happen. And I would love to see that. I just don't think Donald Trump is gonna allow it.
I mean, round two, everyone likes rematches. There's a few folks in this throwing their hat in the ring that are looking for a rematch. But I was also thinking maybe either one of these guys may not make it to the debate stage. You point out Christie's potential low numbers. Of course, he just jumped in. But also Donald Trump, he's facing a lot of investigations. Now we got some stories about potentially him facing charges with the documents situation. Again, that he's exposed himself further when. So there's like 3 or 4 different investigations that could end very badly, which I think many Republicans are banking on, so they don't have to say anything to or about Donald Trump and alienate that crazy ass base. Which, by the way, one person at this town hall that Christie was speaking at did ask about the potential of Donald Trump finding himself wrapped up in some kind of arrest and conviction. And if Christie would do something about that as president in the favor of Trump. This is where there's a couple holes in Christie's arguments here. Let's go.
If Donald Trump is indicted and you become president, will you pardon him?
Well, I have to tell you the truth. I can't completely answer that until I know what he was charged with and convicted of. Okay, so, but I'm not gonna dodge the answer, okay? But I will tell you as a prosecutor, if I believe someone has gotten a full and fair trial in front of a jury of their peers, and especially someone in public life who committed those crimes when they held a public trust, I can't imagine pardoning them.
There's much more happening, including the response from Trump, Sharon, but really fast, that last point. He said, as a former prosecutor, as long as Donald Trump gets a full and fair trial amongst his peers, he couldn't find himself pardoning him, which leaves room for him to claim, if Donald Trump is tried, convicted, and all this happens, that maybe, the way that Donald Trump likes to say, this is the biggest witch hunt ever. They've have unfair trials. Look at this jury. They're all from wherever, Manhattan, and they all hate me just because I'm Donald Trump. That leaves the door open for Christie to say, yo, I never said I wouldn't do it. Just saying maybe. And now we have some fealty there from Christie. Your last thoughts before we go to Trump's response.
He's very agile. This Christie, you're right, he's left the door open. At the end of the day, he will lick his index finger and see which way the wind blows, whichever way benefits him the most. Is it going to be people who are predominantly on the left who will be furious, okay? If Donald Trump does not go to prison, if they do not get to see a trafficant-like mugshot without a toupee, I don't know, maybe it's real. It could be real, what do I know? But they will be furious. Or will he do the Ford thing and say, we just want to bring the country together and people will have settled enough. They'll settle enough and a conviction will be enough. it'll depend on what's best for who? Not America, Christie.
Ironically, Christie, one of the things he also said there was that anytime you hear Donald Trump talking about how he's going to fight for you, be assured he's actually fighting for himself. It's the line of many politicians, which I think they'll all do the similar thing. Maybe Christie will change his mind after he hears what Donald Trump said in response to him running for president, and actually the attacks as well. We know that's what triggered the whole thing. So let's go to this, because Christie is running for president, and Donald Trump is mad about the way that he's approaching him. He's very angry about this direct fire. He's punched him in his face. So Donald Trump responded with this over on Truth Social. You can probably imagine the line of attack that Trump might be going with towards Christie. See if you can see it here. Trump says, how many times did Christie use the word small? Of course, he writes it in capital letters. Does he have a psychological problem with size? Actually, his speech was small and not very good. It rambled all over the place, and nobody had a clue of what he was talking about. Hard to watch, boring, but that's what you get from a failed governor. And he has to point he's from New Jersey. I think Trump maybe forgot and had to look it up. Who left office with a 7% approval rating and then got run out of New Hampshire. This time, it won't be any different. Well, predictions are flying around, but we keep seeing words like small that's accented, size that's accented, small again that's accented. Why does he keep talking about small? Psychological? I think we know where you're going with this, Donnie. But just in case you guys didn't know where he was going with this, he also posted this, which someone else created, but he thought it was great. Watch.
And it was about our country and its future. And I wondered what our choice was going to be. Were we going to be small, or are we going to be big?
Well, there's a edited video there, of course, with buffets in front of Christie as he's holding a full plate. Oh, that's right, because he's overweight. That's what it is. Oh, anytime that someone comes towards Donald Trump with his policies, his failures, and things that he's done, it's pretty obvious. If it's a woman, attack her for some part of her looks, probably her face. And if it's an overweight gentleman like Christie, then it's, oh, he eats all the time. Because no one's ever made that joke before. Is this gonna work? I mean, is this gonna work in response? Because I think it kind of worked the first time, Sharon, but I don't know how much people have evolved. And I have some thoughts on that too, but first yours.
It's not gonna work because we've heard it before. It's a bit played out and we're waiting for the next dance craze, okay? They've done that, okay? We're just not interested. And by the way, Donald Trump is large too. Both men are large and that's okay. It's about the policies. And the other part about it is Christie was the governor of what? New Jersey. And when you exist in that little tri-state area, okay, that can be very angry and can curse out Ted Cruz at a Yankees game, he's used to being called names and names that are targeted about the way he looks. And that's not gonna faze him. He'll punch back and it'll be sport for the rest of us to tune into and watch.
I actually think it's gonna come out looking bad for Trump even. And it's odd, we see how conservatives always call people snowflakes for wanting you to respect someone for who they are, what they say, and just their existence. But I feel like there's a fatigue point we've reached. And actually, I think there's an illustration of this. I mean, I know it's not a politician, it's not a Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis where people, will bow their heads because they think they're their savior. But over on Fox News, which likes to generate and keep the hate warm at times, John Roberts, the anchor there, was talking about as Christie jumped in. I think this is a bit of an illustration as to maybe even where conservative voters and thinkers and even some other anchors on air feel about this. This is what John Roberts was saying after he got into a bit of a mess. Watch this.
Hey, before we go on, I just want to take a moment to address something because I really do feel terrible about it. Earlier on the show, I was making an analogy to describe the Republican voter pool. And I made a comment that I meant to be lighthearted, but immediately realized was hurtful toward Governor Christie. I should not have said what I said. I deeply regret it, and I sincerely apologize to the governor.
How often do you see that on television, let alone Fox News, where this anchor feels deeply regretful for what he said about Christie as he's announcing? You can probably guess what it was, but I'll go ahead and show you. But I want to point out one thing at the back end of this. There's two other hosts on this panel with John Roberts. And as he gets through his offensive comments, take note of what the woman then said at the back. And I'm sorry I didn't get her name, but take note of her response. And actually both of them, watch.
And to use a modification of a metaphor that we were using in the panel earlier today, it's like you have two milkshakes, right? The Republican Party is two milkshakes. And this one, representing almost half the party, because that's what the polling shows, has got one straw in it, and that's Donald Trump's straw, right? And the other milkshake, which represents the non-Donald Trump part of the Republican Party, has how many straws in it now? And now we're going to have Chris Christie's straw there. And judging by Chris Christie's physical stature, he could drink a lot of that milkshake if he wanted to. But you're not.
As she said at the end, ouch. And I think it kind of stuck with him. Because again, I mentioned it earlier when I was on TDR, Sharon. In order for you to be as hateful and into the stretches that Donald Trump has gotten to with generating hate, bigoted, racist, homophobic, all the things that he's set his whole campaign and presidency on, it's accepted. But it seems like the energy from the other folks on that panel, if it's not accepting, then you're like, oh, I think I said the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's not like-minded company. I think more and more of these folks don't want to hear this anymore.
Yeah, I think this indoctrination, the Donald Trump indoctrination of really the world, but Americans who think this is normal and okay to behave in this manner, it will shift back. It will have to moonwalk back from that position of normalcy. At the same time, I do think that this could be simply explained as they've dealt with Chris Christie before, and it's not going to be let go. And he probably called the control room and said, I'll spot you that one, but I got you. I got you.
Really?
Yeah, I think they did. They've dealt with him before, and they know.
They know the approach to go. I mean, John asked me this as well, as far as this field goes. From the way that the way that Christie jumped in here, he's at least giving a different angle and maybe isn't thinking or inspiring others to go, oh, maybe Chris Christie, but not nearly to the degree to win it. But I think he might make a bit of a dent more than he did last time. Hopefully.
I think he's going to make everybody else look weak by doing what he's doing. Pence, all of them will look weaker because Chris Christie's on his toes instead of what they're doing.
And then we'll see his policies and he'll fall apart. Look, I mean, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, all of them were like, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. Openly said it when they announced, I don't want to say anything about Donald Trump. I'm just running against him. We'll see if that works out. I'll follow that, of course. Let's take this first break, you guys. I'm looking forward to a few of your first thoughts on this subject. Who's on board for Chris Christie? People like to ask us the questions of, Trump or DeSantis, if you have to choose between these two horrible individuals, but why those two? But does Chris Christie have a chance, and would that be a disaster just the same as it would be from these two? That's one of the questions I'm wondering about, but also your thoughts from these. But also when we get back from that, apparently Twitter has a new show. It stars Tucker Carlson, and it's so short, but still full of boredom. Let's do that story and much more when we get back.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We spun a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today. This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care. You don't see a lot of news coverage in the mainstream media of the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that happened throughout the country.
Black Americans are hurting. Minorities in this country are hurting.
We always talk about starting from the bottom up, but the problem is the bottom up is always the least amount of power. No one cares about them, and until someone actually cares about them, then we'll do something about it.
Please, for God's sake, America, understand, acknowledge, and work towards getting to a new reality where Black lives actually matter.
Back on the watch list, you guys. What is going on? Hey, I got a bunch of comments in front of me. Let me find that out. Nautilus Maximus over on 2IT members over there says Sharon's going everywhere badasses are. I haven't followed your route today, but I'll co-sign that since where you are now. Fitting she should be here with Jayar. I was called Django Action Jackson. I'm willing to drop the Django part, but still, I'll go with the Action Jackson part. Appreciate you. Where's this? Is this a route you've taken of badassery today? I'm curious.
I don't know even where I'm going or where I've been. It just flows naturally. It just flows. We'll let them decide and define it.
I like the way they do because I think they're onto something. Okay. Over on Twitch, love you guys on Twitch. Suspicious Dragon 92 says, so the Republican primary debate is just going to be some bizarro 5-way roast. We had that in 2015 when they were doing their primary as well. So maybe again, maybe we won't get a Marco Rubio, Donald Trump penis size contest this time. Or maybe we will. Owen the Schmoopy Dragon says, how do you feel about the $2 trillion tax cuts, Chris? Hopefully he'll elaborate further. YouTube, you guys. Katrinonia says, pretty bad that Chris Christie is such a breath of fresh air as a Republican who speaks in complete sentences and isn't constantly ranting about conspiracy theories. Hold. They have a chance still to get there. And lastly, Coos. Thank you for the super chat. Says, Christie's error in calculation is in presuming Republican voters care at all that Trump is a loathsome and despicable individual. You got to try at some point. I agree with you. Try and chip away a little bit at that whole armor he's got that he thinks is protecting him from everything. Let's go ahead and jump over to Twitter, where Tucker Carlson has found himself saying things like this.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir.
He was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see on television that Stream might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like. Can you organize this online 3 years ago? What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified. How did Jeffrey Epstein make all that money? How did he die? How about JFK? And so endlessly on. Not only are the media not interested in
Tucker Carlson was talking on Twitter, not in the normal sense. Apparently it was Tucker on Twitter. You see the little logo at the bottom. Apparently he's got a show. And as you saw that counter go, he was talking about random things. Of course, the same types of things, the same rants he likes to go on about how you should question everything that I tell you to question. Everything. And then 10 minutes worth of it though. And you would maybe wonder, so commercial breaks on Twitter? No, it was over at that point. The producer Emily pointed out that 9 minutes of this whole 10 minutes was him ranting into the camera directly. No graphics, no guests, no videos that support anything that he's doing. I guess it's a bare bone operation. Kat Abu over on Twitter summed this up quite perfectly with what went down. She said, it's 6 p.m. 10 minutes long, 0 graphics, no announcement, obviously unfinished studio. And then the quote, Tucker on Twitter. Apparently she says, great stuff, no notes. I did notice that set there, and it does seem a little bare bones, or at least incomplete. Who knows, or maybe he wanted that rustic look where he's sitting out in the barn and the breeze just blows in. I guess, because that's exactly what it looked like. The reason that this whole thing went down is because remember back when Fox News fired his ass? And then there was some other reports of how they got their stuff back. Let's look at that headline, because Tucker Carlson's home studio was dismantled by Fox News workers. This source says that, quote, we removed equipment after building a custom studio at our expense. We did not tear down the studio. I guess the semantics, I suppose, but they came in and they got that stuff because this is what The Guardian pointed out. Fox came in last week and got all their stuff out of there, is what the Daily Mail quoted construction manager Patrick Feeney saying. They took the set and everything, all the equipment, the chairs, the desk, the fake walls, everything. And what's left is Twitter on Tucker, or Tucker on Twitter. And it's gonna work out, I suppose, even though Tucker Carlson and them have also said that as long as things are fair and safe around here, we'll be here. If not, we will leave. One more thing that he did say, though, before we go into more about the issues he's had with this building, because I looked at the CBS report, and this is part of what he was talking about too, and it's going to give you some insight as to the type of people he's looking to continue to attract. He said a small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. Normal Tucker Carlson things. He said we're allowed to yak all we want about racism. I'm going to say that little phrase again. We're allowed to yak all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. Do you think he's talking to the bunch of folks who were affected by this racism that doesn't matter to Tucker Carlson? You can yak about racism all you want, but then we can go back to things that really matter, like shining red lights on your ball sacks, because that's what he was talking about on his show as well too. Apparently these are the important things that Tucker Carlson talks about, and people were marveling in the numbers of people that watched his seemingly pretty boring show. One more picture though of him unloading some of those axes that I guess appeared in the background of his set, but they took it all down, and this is what he's left with, Sharon. I'm not going to be able to predict whether or not this will be something that's looking to take off on Twitter. I know Elon Musk is pushing for it to take off, and he even says, I would like to invite other folks. Shows of any background on Twitter, because we know Elon's only doing this, first off, to promote conservatives, but then also hopefully make some money back that he's continuing to lose. Are you going to watch the next episode?
I won't, because I'm not predisposed to this kind of thing, but you've explained a lot. Now we know why Tucker Carlson's set looks like whatever he could get overnight, Amazon, that delivery between 2 and 6 a.m. Because Fox was brilliant in waiting to the last minute to dismantle what was theirs. But I will point out to you, this crude makeshift, and that was a great fast forward, by the way, because we've heard it before and we don't need to hear more. This crude set and this just nonsense gibberish still is approaching 90 million views on Twitter. And that means that people don't much care about the design, the graphics. He probably has same producer who got fired, still with him, writing the gibberish, and he's just delivering the lines. But people still want to consume this, some, and maybe more than we'd like to think.
And what kind of he needs the budget can't be a problem, or maybe there's no video editing equipment. Maybe they don't want to go that route. Maybe it's the pilot episode and they're going to add things later when it gets picked up for the full season run.
Come on, really? If that's the pilot, really?
90 million.
Saying, I'll just keep all the money for myself. He got plenty of money from Fox, and this is what we're going with. And watch my Tucker voice. Watch these fools. They'll still come. They'll still watch me.
Well, probably. I mean, when it comes to divisive folks like this, you get the supporters and also the opponents. So it kind of stacks up your viewership. We'll see if the opponents are still going to be watching this. It's pretty hard to watch. Let's jump to this next story because there's updates. I don't do a lot of updates on the show, but this one stuck with me, the original story, and it was just yesterday. And people were hoping for some kind of resolution, which we haven't gotten to, but at least there's a step towards that. Remember this story of the neighbor who shot her black neighbor that was looking to confront her after everything went down between her children and that said angry neighbor. Let's watch the updates of what's going on now.
According to the Marion County Sheriff's Office, 58-year-old Susan Lawrence was arrested on charges of manslaughter, culpable negligence, battery, and assault. Lawrence is accused of fatally shooting Ashaka A.J. Owens, a mother of 4, through her closed door.
My daughter, my grandchildren's mother, was shot and killed, with her 9-year-old son standing next to her.
The sheriff's office says it all stemmed from a dispute after Lawrence got upset over Owens' children playing in a nearby field.
Sounds like a neighborly thing that you can't really deal with. If there's children around, you have to get to yelling and screaming and then shooting. We talked about it the other day, but still now that suspect has now been arrested for the murder of killing of A.J. Owens. Her name is Susan Lawrence. And the sheriff there was pointing out why it took so long. We did mention yesterday, of course, it's in Florida, so stand your ground reigns supreme before we even go after looking into the folks that pulled the trigger through a door. Because you know how stand your ground must work. Just shoot behind anything and you can claim it. Still, the sheriff talked about what went down and now what the situation is.
Now, many of you were struggling to understand why there was not an immediate arrest. Well, As I partially explained in the beginning, the laws here in the state of Florida are clear. Now, I may not like them. I may not agree with them. But however, those laws I will follow. Now, some of you have asked me about the Stand Your Ground law. Personally, I think it's a great law designed to help Floridians to defend themselves and keep themselves safe. However, it does not apply in all situations. And this situation is a prime example of when it was not justified. It was simply a killing.
I don't know if you went into more details as to why this was different, because we've seen these types of situations happen before, and it seems somewhat similar, except for the closed door. And Stand Your Ground is a great law, according to him, because it allows Floridians to defend themselves and keep themselves safe. I thought that's what you can do under normal self-defense laws that are throughout the country. But this ratcheted up version, which also was promoted by many pundits and also other authority figures, pointed out and made people believe, yo, this is the way to go. So, I mean, this woman, Susan Lorenz, or whatever her name is, took the bait of what they told her to be about. Look at Trayvon Martin, it happened, and people just brushed right over that and even congratulated the killer in that particular sense. So of course you're gonna find more of these folks doing it, and she should probably be pretty mad at the way that they sold the Stand Your Ground law to her. I guess it doesn't apply to her though. As we've seen before, in case you guys forgot a bit of the story, the kids were playing. This woman got upset, threw a roller skate, allegedly, of course, as well. His iPad had cracked it, and that's when AJ came over to confront her for abusing, yelling at, and potentially assaulting her children. Then it resulted in this. So who's the aggressor in this situation? Maybe they finally figured it out, Sharon.
I don't know if they have or they haven't, but I can see how she ended up here as a white woman living in Florida, a stand your ground state. It's shocking. It's shocking to her that she's actually in cuffs now, and it's a setup for the rest of us because it took this long for that to happen, which means the setup and the fix is in, because the smallest of victories, just the arrest, will be viewed by some as the whole game. And it's sad to me, really, because what the sheriff should have also pointed out is stand your ground does not apply to Black people. And we caution you, don't go to Florida and think that you can get away with this, because you can't. And this white woman, I predict, will probably escape the harshest penalties that she seems to deserve for this unwarranted level, this attack.
I like connecting things sometimes to go through. You talked about the warnings of potentially going to Florida. We saw the NAACP point out folks that aren't in Florida to have travel advisories based off of these laws that Ron DeSantis is pushing and passing. Limitation of education within the state, specifically directed at Black folks, because he doesn't want people to know about the history of the country, things that are done, have been done, and continue to be done in different ways. So when that is an ignorance level from the top of the state, that's sprinkled among the rest of the citizenry, yeah, people like this woman who've now finally been arrested will see those Black children and think that they're bigger or stronger or somehow more threatening than they could ever be, because that's the way she perceives them. And if you have to learn about how people always do that, because there's psychological studies about how people do that, because society tells people how to think, then maybe you'll understand that this ain't gonna work out for you. Yo, that's a 9-year-old kid. What do you really think they're gonna do to you? To where you have to pull out your gun, and then when their mother comes over to defend them, since we're talking about defensiveness, you go to shooting. And they feel like they've created this scenario where we can just protect all the folks who think like us. Well, some of those folks get caught up, as Susan, I believe her name is, I feel like I want to mess with her name, Lawrence has. And now I guess she feels a bit betrayed. Education leads to less violence. Not a lack of it leads to a lot more ignorance and a lot more violence, which they're promoting, of course, every time they turn their backs. Maybe at some point this could be something that goes on, but they're calling the NAACP's calls to avoid this state as dangerous and political and just putting it out there to make them look bad. This doesn't make you look bad. And the next one that happens tomorrow, we'll see. I've talked about this long enough. Let's go to the mall, you guys. Warning before we go to this video though, you guys, because someone takes a bit of a leap of faith after trying to take a couple products out of an Apple store. And he jumps from one story of this mall to the bottom floor, and it doesn't work out well for him. He's a bit injured. Let's go and watch this.
Oh my God! Oh, oh! Go, come on, y'all. Oh my God! He broke this leg. Yeah. Is his neck? He broke something.
A man in a Philadelphia mall was attempting to rob an Apple store, and I don't think he had much of a plan available because he dove over the side of a railing from the second floor, and of course didn't make it out, as you can see there. His name is Abdi Wasuj. And this is what happened to him. He broke his pelvis and tailbone after leaping from that second floor in Willow Grove Mall. Let's take a picture of his mugshot because, of course, he didn't get away. They caught up to him. He spent 7 days in the hospital and was taken into custody upon his release. What happened to this guy here is busted his hip, pelvis, all this. Here's some more details from 6 ABC News down there. Abington police say that Wasuj, hope I'm not destroying his name too badly, acted like a customer at the Apple store and said he wanted to purchase 2 MacBook Pro laptops, an iPhone 14, and also some accessories. So of course the salesman were probably getting very excited. Instead of buying the items, police say that he snatched them and tried to run out of the store. A Good Samaritan then engaged with him and a struggle ensued. And police say that Wasuj threatened the Good Samaritan by saying, "Back off or I'll shoot you." He dropped the stolen goods and then made his getaway until that plunge onto that hard tile floor from the bottom. And as far as that threat of shooting, police didn't recover any firearm from the suspect, who they then took into custody. But I've had these worries before because I'm a paranoid person sometimes, Sharon, and I hope I'm not the crazy one. But when I'm walking underneath those railings in malls, I stay away from the edge where someone can come off every time, whenever I can, whenever it's in the forefront of my mind. And when I saw this, that was the first thing I was worried about was who's under him, who's under him, who's under him. So in this case, just trying to steal some Apple products that cost, several few $1,000s, I guess, from a couple of laptops and such, he destroys himself. It's hard to watch, but still, what's your thoughts here?
Well, my thoughts are probably, they go against the grain. I feel sorry for this guy because a broken pelvis, so I've heard, is incredibly painful, okay? The other thing is Apple can afford it, so I don't know why the Good Samaritan is even getting involved here. I don't. That's just me, and I'm not advocating that you should go in and steal things, but it's just not worth it for anyone involved in this. And finally, I would say this, based on what you're telling me, you might be a little paranoid. I don't know if you saw something as a child, perhaps. Did something fall from the sky and hurt you? Was it a bad dream, a movie that haunts you years later? But it happens so rare. And the only person who is going to be wheeled into court is the perp here. Nobody else is going to get hurt. You'll be okay.
If he lands on me, I won't be okay. That's a problem. I mean, how about my broken pelvis when he jumps over the edge? You know what it is? It's, people have a general sense of fear of heights. I don't necessarily have that. But when looking over, I'm like, if someone else is in this position, what's gonna happen down there? So I have the fear of someone who has no fear of heights and, I don't know, is running from an Apple store after they got busted. And then some Good Samaritan goes and grabs them because laptops and an iPhone 14, which I agree with you on. If somebody's stealing something, you guys, maybe he would have had a gun. I have a good idea. Watch, maybe film him, get his face, who knows? Just maybe that level, because who knows if he flips you over the edge. There's lots of problems here. There's lots of problems here. Call me paranoid. I know you already did. My bad. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story. Let's come back to Los Angeles, where apparently there's never any anti-LGBTQ protests or hate going on. That's what I hear some pundits talking about, unless you're in the Glendale area where this happened. LA police apparently trying to break up a huge fight. What kind of riots are these? These are hateful people that are mad that the Glendale Unified School District school board was voting. They were voting whether or not they're gonna recognize June as Pride Month. So of course you should be fighting because that's a good way to get your point across and fight with folks who actually support humans being the humans that they are. So among this violence, though, a pro-LGBTQ religious clergyman was also pepper sprayed by these agitators. They're very upset about, again, a vote in the United States of America. Let's watch.
For you to be out here today, risking life and limb,
the violence continues. The police, as you saw, were in the middle of it, so they tried to shove a little bit. There's more video here. Shove a little bit of these agitators, the angry, violent protesters here, from some of the folks who were in support of such a vote. Let's check out how they pulled that whole thing out, because they eventually circled the folks that were trying to be there. Let's watch.
Which means to break up this assembly and to leave the area. If you do not do so, you may be arrested or subject to other law enforcement action. Talk
to your boys, man. Do me a favor. We're trying to de-escalate things. We're trying to help you guys out. This is your community, right? Said to go on the side. I don't care what they said. You're going northbound. The cop just said to go on the side. Sure. What are you in the public sidewalk? It's a public sidewalk. It's a public sidewalk.
The madness is going off here, Sharon. And again, I want to remind everybody, this is over a school board in Glendale, whether or not they're going to vote on recognizing June as Pride Month. June, the month that damn near everybody's out of school anyway, number one. And number two, whoever they're looking to protect by not having the school recognize Pride Month is harming which children, which by the way, all these children know what the hell Pride Month is. So the recognition of it, I'm not sure what it really does, but the violence is definitely there, Sharon.
Well, the violence is just horrific. These parents who just wanted their kids to have a piece of something, and as you pointed out, yep. And I don't know, maybe in California, you'd know better than I, kids go to school more year round than in other places. That's what I was always told, correct me if I'm wrong. But at the end of the day, I felt that the police response was completely inept here. Maybe there are no protests like this in California because they didn't seem to know how to handle it. And they threw up their hands and they basically, it seemed to me from where I sat, were good people on both sides and let's just figure this out and just everybody go home. And that's not the way you want to handle this. It's not the way you want to handle it. One side perhaps had a permit, one side didn't, I don't know. But it just seemed to be completely, wholly inept, the response from the police.
Maybe they weren't prepared for this. Maybe they didn't think this would happen. Or I mean, I'm sure the protesters that came through didn't do it all that silently in order for them to gather the way that they did. But you mentioned parents and school. There's some aspects of that though. Let's get past that first graphic though. You guys go to graphic 3 here, because it was suspected that some of these folks that came out weren't necessarily concerned about children, their children for sure, but definitely not children in the Glendale Unified School District, because some local journalists noticed that many of these anti-protesters weren't from the area. Let's check that out, because Eve points out, hey, LA Times, please report the fact that these chuds are not parents at the school and bust themselves in from out of town because they don't even know what district they're in. Signed, a proud alum of Glendale Unified School District. Apparently they're the Falcons as well. So they're pointing out some of these folks that are there that probably have no idea what the area is like or what it is because they're not from here. That's just one account. Here's another one. It's being reported elsewhere that most of these protesters aren't from Glendale. Many don't even have kids. In fact, there are who's who of traveling fascists who mob up and attack people in various cities throughout California and Oregon, again, pointing out what is this going on, because we know some of these folks that try and collect and come to these school board meetings, they find themselves in certain regions and keep pushing the same nonsense to everyone around them, because it's not about children. It's not about any of this other stuff. It's about trying to generate more violence and anger and coalition of people. Maybe they can get a job or something. I know they say this about other folks. Lastly, though, Lois Beckett also tweeted, and local journalists who have been covering the far right in Los Angeles for years are reporting that many familiar far right activists, people who are not Glendale parents, were at the volatile protest outside of a Glendale school board meeting tonight, as things again were calming down there. Not much of a surprise to me, Sharon, but this is the way that these folks approach these things. This is what they're about. And really, the principles just aren't there as they're shouting how they're doing this for the children when they ain't even got any children.
No children, and I'm waiting for, is anybody gonna blame Antifa? Don't we hear? Is Antifa gonna be blamed next? It's really pathetic, but you said get a job. This is their job. It is a full-time job, and they are paid perhaps going from city to city, town to town. And yes, school board meeting to school board meeting to push this agenda to sow division. They don't even care about the issue. They really care less about the issue. It's just about sowing division.
That's what the work is looking to do now, sowing division, and they've gotten their way. But then again, which rules are being changed? Is this gonna make the folks vote differently in that school board? They don't care. The whole point here is to intimidate. This is why many times these groups, they've been deemed the biggest homegrown domestic terrorism groups in our country. That's what they do. So yeah, you're right. I was wrong. This is their job. And many of these organizations are funded by folks who want to see this continue while they rob everyone else blind, because they're over here fighting over whether or not we recognize Pride Month. Hey, head over to West Hollywood and see how much Pride is being recognized. I think you're losing that battle. You guys, let's go to the G block here. I want to get to that because Alex Jones is absolutely insane. Also, Emily, see if you can keep compiling a couple of thoughts here, because I want to see what folks have been saying about all these as we go into these last few minutes of the show. But Alex Jones is on one. Let's go ahead and watch. It's no new.
I mean, I remember learning when I was a teenager that Texas still had sodomy laws, and thinking, well, they shouldn't arrest, gay people. And then I learned that I'm not supposed to call them homosexuals, even though it's heterosexual, homosexual. It's a scientific term. And then it's, just let us marry. And then now just let us have access to your kids. And now just let us cut your son's penis off. And I'm not going to lump all those groups into one group, but there's a reason it's been banned in civilization, because every time it starts, it takes over. If you read in some of the first books of the Bible, I forget which one it's in, with the story of Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. Is that in Genesis, or is that the next book? And it's like they're having a gay pride parade. They're like, we're gonna have sex with your kids and the men. Bring them out. And I mean, it's like a cult. It's a gang. It's taking over. It's everywhere. I mean, imagine if like heterosexuals were just making out everywhere and beat each other with bullwhips at parades and had little kids out there. You'd be like, man, you people are perverts, man.
Weird. Have you guys never seen heterosexual folks making out before? Just never seen it in my life. Never seen them showing up and bringing their kids to Hooters. Never seen any of those things happen with heterosexual folks. But still, apparently, Alex Jones is on one talking about how, that's why these things don't thrive in societies, because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I can't get away from it because I can't get my mind off of gay folks. Can't get my mind off of trans folks. I cannot figure out which way to turn, except I'm the one who continues talking about it. When is this going to keep happening? How come this keeps happening to us? Well, if you look for something, you'll find it. And definitely he's found it before. Because remember back in 2018, there's this guy, his name is, he looks a lot like Alex Jones. And he was caught looking at his phone that had transgender porn on it. Weird how that works. Remember this? Watch.
.com to go look all of this up. And it is extremely
there was that quick moment as he was flipping the phone. One of the things up, we can look at the image here, the still image here of one of those screens that he was referring back to, I guess for show purposes. He was just making sure that they had their graphics ready, maybe the right videos for the show. But it was definitely, apparently, which he did point out, I think he did admit to it, trans porn. For a split second on the camera, still trans on the screen, it revealed all those tabs. And one of those pages was titled, Naughty T-Babe, Marissa, And it continues on. A T-babe is a term used to refer to transgender porn stars. And the clip is believed to show Marissa Minx, described as Australia's #1 trans companion and XXX adult model. So maybe someone should let Alex Jones know, hey, you keep seeing it everywhere because you keep looking for it. And by the way, bro, have at it. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. It's America, right? Except when you do it, it's not a problem. When people just live and thrive, and apparently maybe your favorite porn star also, you're okay with it there. There's one more stop, but I want your thoughts here first, Sharon, because this is a lot. This is a lot building. Why is it everywhere, and how do we get rid of it?
And since you broke it all the way down, someone's OnlyFans page is just gonna skyrocket now. Alex Jones has apparently been doing this work, we learned in the first clip, since he was a teenager when he was researching sodomy laws in Texas. And you're right, have at it. He should do whatever floats his boat. But this is now bordering on obsession. I think he's obsessed. And I'm fine with that too. Who's he hurting? If he just keeps it personal and opens more tabs, it's all good. But this is obsession, and it's about the man in the mirror.
It always is one of those things, like the pride displays in Target that folks running and film themselves yanking kids' shirts and then snatching down displays, and you go, why is this always in my face? And I gotta be honest, I didn't see the pride displays until folks started highlighting them so much because I wasn't shopping for pride merch. But if you are, cool, they let you find it. I'm also not shopping in the cosmetics department. I'm also not shopping in electronics because I don't do that. But fine, it has to be there for folks who are shopping for it. But they're making it seem like this is all brand new, and look how they're throwing this and shoving it in our faces. Again, next time you see a heterosexual couple walking down the street and holding hands, scream, I can't believe they're shoving this in my face. It's just there, it's who they are. I think they get to have that. One more embarrassing clip though here, because Alex Jones has also had this response as he was looking at that porn there on his show. When a fan called in, didn't look all that good. Is this the same video yet? Let's see what else is happening here. Is it? Watch.
And also, what about the trans porn on your phone, Alex? Or you were going to talk about that?
Say that again.
Trans porn on your phone. That's all they keep talking about. And
I saw a couple news articles about that. It's ridiculous. I was like looking up some reporter we're trying to hire today and punched in some number and it popped up porn on my phone. Everybody's had porn pop up on their phones hundreds of times. So I'm sitting there with a phone on air showing it to everybody because I couldn't get a URL up in the studio. And then like something pops up and like, oh my God. And I looked at it. Wasn't the news blurted out because there was nothing there. They blurred it to then say something was there. Then you went to it was some porn menu. I probably had porn menus pop up 500 times on my phone. So I appreciate your call. I mean, it's insane, ladies and gentlemen. There's two types of people that look at porn and people that lie about it. But I wasn't looking at porn on my phone. I don't take phones on air that I look at porn on.
I save my phones for porn off air, not the ones that I bring on air. Also, by the way, he says looking for a URL to pop up. I didn't know they were calling it URLs lately. I got to get with the kids and what they're talking about. Thoughts, Sharon?
And that's funny. I mean, he's both those people, right? He's looking up porn and he's lying about it. And again, he said that most people have porn pop up on their phones. Yeah, because they're looking for it, okay? That's how it happens. That's how it populates, Alex. And I don't know why when the woman said what she said and asked the question, he didn't just hang up on her instead of at the end saying, I appreciate your, what did he say? He doesn't appreciate it, right? He doesn't appreciate it, okay? He should fess up and be like millions of others across the globe, across America who want to engage in this and just do you, Alex, but leave the rest of us alone with your hate.
Can you imagine how much more calm some of these folks would be if they just accepted that they do what they want and other folks can do what they want? And we might focus on actual issues that are actually bringing the country down, but that's the whole purpose for these social media wars and these culture wars that they're pushing on everyone is stop thinking about what's actually destroying your life. Stop thinking about the wages that it's being stolen from you. Stop thinking about the fact you have no health care and you're stressed out about it. Stop thinking about the fact your kids can't even go to school without paying exorbitant amounts of money. What are we gonna do in the future? Who cares? There's gay people across the street. or not even across the street, downtown at some event that you went and found them at. Anyways, a couple thoughts before we get out of here. We have like a couple seconds. I told you guys to shout out at me. Lynn, 2IT member, says, I guess an apple a day doesn't keep the doctor away. Well, absolutely not. The doctor has to do a lot more reconstructive type of surgeries. Twitch, Suspicious Dragon 92, what's up? Says every sheriff in Florida trying to be a Grady Judd or Wayne Ivey. Grady Judd, I'm not as familiar with, but Wayne Ivey for sure. He's trying to jail a bunch of people as possible. Over on YouTube, you guys, some comments there. Neil Mick says, I'll go with not well thought out plans for $60, Alex. Again, I think this is the guy up in Pennsylvania jumping off of second floor storied windows onto people. And I guarantee you, Sharon, you'll be thinking about it next time you're in the mall. Thank you for joining us on the show, Sharon. I appreciate you. Be careful out there, you guys. Make sure you look up before you come outside of the edge of these mall raptors. Thanks, Sharon. Hope we see you soon, as usual. And also thank you guys for being with me as well. Up next, we have the Young Turks. Anna Kasparian leads that first hour for solo time. And then here comes John Idaho to join her for the second hour. Should be a fun time. We'll see you guys tomorrow on this show.